It just, one moment. Just takes a moment. All right, we are good to go. Andrew, if you want to take it away.
Good evening. My name is Andrew LaPointe, a sitting member of the Cable Television Committee, publicly known as Dighton TV9. In partnership with this station, the Town of Dighton Facebook page, and the Friends of the Dighton Public Library, we proudly present to you the 2020 Meet the Candidates Night. The following topics may be controversial and/or political in nature. The opinions expressed during the following program are strictly those of the participants and speaking members of the public and do not reflect the views of the Town of Dighton, Dighton TV9, its management, or directors. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cable, and thank you, everybody, for getting those technology issues solved. And welcome, everybody, to the Friends of the Dighton Public Library's first ever virtual Candidates Night. We obviously would have wanted to have this in person. However, in light of the circumstances, we were able to make this work to do it a virtual Candidates Night. I wanted to do, by way of introduction, I will introduce myself. My name is Zach LaPointe. I am the chairperson of the Friends of the Dighton Public Library, and I will be serving as your MC for this evening. How this evening is going to work is that we are going to start with introductions. Each candidate is going to be given 3 minutes to introduce themselves to the public that are on this call. They will tell us a little bit about themselves, why they're running, anything like that you would typically do in an introduction. After we go through everybody, I will open it up to the audience members to ask questions. That being said, you are muted. We will keep you muted. Please type any questions in the chat feature on the screen. It's usually in the bottom part of your screen. Please make sure when you type a question in that your name and street address are in the question, as this is being recorded publicly. And if anybody has any questions at this point about how things are going to work, please let me know now in the chat message before we get going.
Zach, let him know about the timer.
Oh yes, you will be timed. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for introduction. Pat Gales, who just made mention of that fact, she will be timing you, and she's going to be keeping time for me and letting me know when it's time for us to move on to the next candidate. All right, let's get started. I'm going to read the ballot to you. I'm going to read it by participants who are here tonight. For Selectmen, we have Ken Pacheco, who is running as the incumbent candidate for re-election. And we have David Rosa on the call also. He is running for Selectman for the seat that is up for election. For the Board of Assessors, hold on 1 second, folks. All right, bear with me for 1 minute. I'm having a technical glitch on my end. Okay, sorry about that, folks. On the ballot for the annual election are as follows. For Board of Selectmen, we have Kenneth Pacheco, who is the candidate for re-election, and we have David Rosa. For the Board of Assessors, we have Eric Easterday and David Rosa. For the Dighton Rehoboth Regional School Committee, we have two candidates, both running for re-election. We have Liza Koecher and Janice Terry. For Planning Board, we have Jeff Carvalho. For Library Trustee, we have Ronald J. O'Connor, who is a candidate for re-election. For Sewer Commissioner, we have Robert Woods Jr. For the Dighton Housing Authority is Alice Souza, who is a candidate for re-election. And for Parks and Recreation Commissioner, we have Suzanne Coe, who is running for re-election. So with that being said, I will open it up to the candidates by way of introduction. So we'll start off with you, Ken.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the Friends of the Dighton Public Library, first of all, for allowing me to speak to the public. I appreciate having candidates night. I am running for re-election. I've been your select person for the last 2 years. I have lived in Dighton for the past 32 years. I've been married to my wife, Christine, my college sweetheart, for 48 years. I have 2 children that have graduated from Dighton Rehoboth High School. I have been a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for 17 years. And when I got reelected, I got elected as select person. I had to give that position up. I am a member of the Historic Commission. I am a member of the Cemetery Commission. I am also a member of the Affordable Housing. I'm also a liaison person for the ADA Commission. I am a retired probation officer. I've been a probation officer for 35 years. I retired as the chief probation officer of the Taunton District Court. I have been a member of the Dighton Historical Society for over 30 years. I have made myself as a select person accessible to the public. I be giving 2 hours a week, office hours, allowing the public to come in and speak to me about anything, and people have come in. I've also published my home telephone number to give people an opportunity to ask me any questions. That's kind of it. I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Rosa.
Okay, good evening, and to all the participants and the viewers. And again, thank you to the Friends of the Dighton Public Library for sponsoring this, putting it on, pulling it all together. Thank you very much for that. It's a great public service. I have lived in Dighton for much of my life. I am a veteran. I've been married for over 40 years. I have 2 children that have graduated from our schools and gone on to be what I hope are successful and fine examples of what our school system can produce. Before, I am currently retired, and before that, I was a member of the Army National Guard for many years, and also public service, serving with the, probably no one will recognize this term, the Acquisition Corps for the military, helping for the, being part of the research, development, procurement, and fielding of the weapon systems that our young people and our military people depend on and rely on across the globe, and for many of the services. I've also served, I'm in my 3rd term as one of the commissioners on the Parks and Recreation Commission. I hope that many people are able, families are able to use and happy with the parks as they are, and the tennis court. And, you know, me and the other commissioners have been diligent in that, and hopefully have worked well with the administration in bringing about those facilities and bringing them up to a level where everyone can use them. I think I'll hold up there and wait for the questions to come along to fill in the gaps if there are any. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosa. Who is next? Is Eric Easterday on this call? No? Okay. Mr. Rosa, would you like to speak about your candidacy for the Board of Assessors at all, or do you want to hold off for questions?
No, I'd be happy to speak about that for a minute because it's a little bit tied into the other one, but I'll try and keep it to this. I feel that the two offices can be used instrumentally to affect change in property taxes and the way some properties are taxed, and to perhaps lead the way in changing the way the state imposes some of its rules on Board of Assessors, which of course has an effect on property taxes. I'd also like to see some changes made with regard to abatements that we allow veterans and elderly to help them retain their homes and carry the burden of the property taxes. So these two positions in conjunction will help me to work that vision and that program that I have in my mind to make some changes that I think are important and valuable to the people of Dighton and to the town. So I'll stop there.
All right, Mr. Rosa, thank you very much. Next on the ballot, I have under Dighton Rehoboth Regional School Committee, I have Liza Koecher. Mrs. Koecher, would you like to speak, give your introduction?
Yes, please. Thank you, Zach. Zach, if I may, just before I begin, I'd like to clarify for a minute that we are both running, Janice Terry and myself, and that there
Yes.
are 2 seats available for school committee. So we are both running, but not opposed to each other. There are 2 available seats.
Correct, yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that for the audience. And I've enjoyed working with Janice on the school committee. Good evening to everyone. My name is Liza Koecher, and I'm running for re-election to the Dighton Rehoboth Regional School Committee. I'd like to thank you for participating in this virtual candidates night, and thank Zach and the Friends of the Library for hosting this evening. I reside at 176 Center Street. My son Matthew graduated from DR in 2015 and received an excellent education and enjoyed his time in the DR schools. He has since graduated from Emerson College. I am a retired educator and taught at the Freetown Lakeville Middle School for over 30 years at the 6th grade level. I was first appointed to the school committee in 2010 and have served as a representative of Dighton since. Serving on the school committee allows me to share my expertise and experience while giving back to the community. Working to provide a strong education as well as maintaining fiscal responsibility for the towns has been challenging at times, but no more so than during this coronavirus pandemic. I have to thank all our administrators, educators, staff, students, and parents for the outstanding efforts being made to continue the educational experience for all our students. And despite many unknowns at the federal, state, and local levels, and with the virus itself, as the school year comes to an end, we are honoring our graduates for their academic accomplishments and wishing them success in their futures. I wish it could be a traditional time of celebration, but we are trying to be creative with safety, of course, as top priority for students, staff, and families. This is equally true as we work to propose plans for the future and what school might look like in the fall. Dr. Azar has established a Phase 4 advisory committee to begin this process, on which I will serve. Our first meeting is scheduled for next week. This advisory board will include administrators, educators, nurses, police, fire, public health officials, and parents. We'll review guidance from local boards of health, state government, Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and federal government agencies. We've been through difficult budget situations in the past few years and have come through them all. And now more than ever, we need to work cooperatively with both towns to continue to provide our communities with the excellent education they expect and our students deserve from the Dighton Rehoboth schools. It has been my pleasure to serve the town of Dighton on the school committee for the last 10 years, and I hope you will continue to have confidence in my ability to serve in the future. Thank you for your continued support, and please reach out to me anytime you have questions or concerns at ekoecher@drregional.org. I wish you and your families good health as we continue to navigate this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eliza. Is Janice Terry on the call? Janice, I don't know if you can hear me, but did you want to speak or introduce yourself to the community? All right, not getting anything from you. So I'm going to move on for candidate for planning board. We have Jeff Carvalho. Jeff, if you want to take it away.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Zach, thank you for putting this together. I'm sure there's a whole group of people to thank. Thank you all for putting this together. My name is Jeff Cavallo, and I'm running for the vacant seat on the Dighton Planning Board. A little about me, my family and I have been in Dighton. I've been residents here for about 9 years. We built a home here and moved in roughly November of 2011. We first came to Dighton because we love the country setting and value strong public education, and that Dighton has to offer. And my wife Kelly and I, we have 4 children. We have 3 in Dighton Middle and 1 in the elementary school. And we're all getting ready to wrap up the school year with all the distance learning going on. And I'm sure everybody knows it's been quite an adventure this year. So I've also served on the Dighton Trails Committee for 2 years now. This is second year serving as the chair of that committee. Most common question I got when I was going around getting the petition filled out was why the planning board? And I can only answer that through my own personal experience with the planning board. Like I said, we moved here back in 2011, and we built a home over on Tommy's Way in southern Dighton. Shortly after moving in here, we realized that the development that we're in was, I guess it would be designated a failed development. It hadn't quite been finished by the previous owners. And over the next several years, after a change of developer, we spent a lot of time with a lot of interactions with the town, specifically the planning board. And I was able to organize a lot of the neighbors, get a lot of inputs. And through that experience, got really to see how the planning board functioned and the amount of hard work that everybody put in. And I wanted to have the opportunity at some point to be part of that. And when I saw this seat opening up, I saw that as an opportunity to also to serve, as I've saw a lot of the other members also serve. So if I'm elected for the seat, I'd like to use that experience to improve our town, one building project at a time. So thank you. And with that, if there are any questions, I'd be glad to stand by.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for participating also. All right, I have gone through everybody that is on this call that is listed on the ballot. That being said, I'm ready to start taking questions, and how questions are going to work is if you're going to open up your chat feature and make sure that you put your name, street address, and your question to the candidate. Each candidate will be given about a minute to answer the question. And we are ready to go. And I believe there is one already here. This is from Ann Graylish Russ from 797 Hart Street. This is for Ken Pacheco and Dave Rosa. In your opinion, is it more important to keep people safe and healthy during this pandemic or open business soon and restart the economy?
Do you want me to answer that first?
Yes, go ahead, Ken.
Sure. To me, it's more important that we keep the people in town healthy versus open up the business. I understand why people want businesses to open up, but we have a state of emergency. We're going by the guidelines of our governor and his different phases that he's proposed. So I'm in favor of going slow. I'm in favor of people wearing masks and washing their hands and social distancing. Now, my opponent, Mr. Rosa, on April 26, he attended a demonstration in Fall River asking for the government to open everything up. On April 26, we had 49,000 dead people in the United States because of coronavirus. We now have over 100,000 people. I'm in favor of going slow, being careful. There's a lot of thought that we're going to have a second wave in the fall. There are a lot of people that are elderly. I'll include myself that we have to be concerned. I had to see my mother-in-law in a nursing in her hospital bed today. I had to wear a mask. I wasn't offended by the mask.
And if you could finish up your thought on that, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa, I will let you go now and respond to that. Mr. Rosa, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Hey,
Cable.
Zach, as the host, you
There
can
we
unmute
go.
him.
We're good. I got
There we
it.
go.
All right. So I just want to thank Mr. Pacheco for his recognizing my participation at a freedom of speech event where people who are concerned about the reopening of our economy were voicing their concerns, even though they were, assaulted by, an individual with a vehicle and poisonous gases. It's just stunning how some of these people who want to open up the economy can be assaulted. Now, of course, we want to be safe and we want to take precautions. And I encourage everybody to take whatever precautions they feel are best for them. We've got this bit of a difficult situation in front of us, and there's the worst choices you can have is a series of
Time.
All right, Mr. Rosa, if you could finish up your thought, please.
Okay, so I support, a safe and sane reopening of the economy. And Mr. Pacheco probably comes from an angle where he gets his check no matter what happens. Whereas a lot of people out there, their businesses are on the line and we have to make allowance for that.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Rafa Delphin, 400 Lincoln Avenue in North Dighton. To Mr. Pacheco and Mr. Rosa, and Ken, I will let you go first. What are your 3 goals you wish to accomplish during your term or your next term as selectman?
One of them, you want me to speak first?
Yes, please.
Sure. One of them is to we have a grant for the ADA to evaluate all of our town buildings, to remove all the barriers, and we've got that grant. We're in the process of looking at the draft and getting that report. And it's my goal, one of my goals is to do what we can to remove the barriers for the people in town. The second goal of mine is to get a new library. We presently have a library that is in rough shape. There is a plan to add onto that library. We have gotten a grant, provisional approval of a grant for over $4 million towards building, adding on to the library. I'm opposed to that. I'm in favor of a new library. I think we can do it a lot cheaper. And the third goal, I had on the warrant a senior work program so that seniors could work off some of their taxes if they chose to do so. We did take it off the warrant because of the pandemic, and we were concerned about seniors working around town because of the pandemic. But that would be one of my goals at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Rosa, if you want to answer the same question, what are your 3 goals you wish to accomplish during your term as selectman?
Well, I want to make sure that I listen to the constituents and the people throughout Dighton. One of my other goals is to change the 40B law. And to that end, I have crafted a revision of the 40B law. And I have taken that before our representative, Patricia Haddad, State Representative Haddad, and we are working together to bring that forward so that we can keep a development like a 40B from putting an excessive burden on the town when in such a short period of time. So I'll stop there and we'll go on to the next question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosa. This question is from Chris Hoskins, who is a member of Save Our Schools Dighton Rehoboth. And this is for selectman candidates. How would you, as a member of the Dighton Select Board, work towards a healthier relationship with Rehoboth, a fellow member of the regional school district, after current and former officials from both towns have worked in the opposite direction? And Mr. Pacheco, if you would go first on that, please.
Sure. I can tell you what we've done. We've had joint meetings with the Board of Selectmen in Rehoboth. We've had at least 2 of those meetings. I believe we may have had 3 meetings where we kind of talk about different issues that both towns are confronting. I understand people's concern about a better relationship with the town of Rehoboth. As you know, in the years past, we paid more for the high school and for the school department than we should have. So there's been some friction, and they're concerned that they're paying more money because of the wealth tax on the school budget. So I think we're going to continue having those meetings with the Board of Selectmen in Rehoboth. And we have a committee, an advisory committee that works with the high school. We have a person from the finance committee as well as from the Selectman's office that works with the Department of Education in Rehoboth and Dighton, and they're trying to work out some agreement on the budget. So I think things have gotten better. I've got a good relationship with the Selectmen in Rehoboth, and I think things in the future are better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Rosa, if you would answer the same question, please.
I think we got into this situation because of the foot dragging and the lack of cooperation. And I would work diligently to reach out to Rehoboth and resolve those issues. It appears to me that there's all too often an adversarial relationship, and that's not helping anybody. So I would work very carefully and diplomatically to resolve that and pull together the resources that we need and the solutions that make sense for both of us. All too often an adversarial relationship.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rosa. The next question is from Rhonda Gameros, and I apologize if I butchered your last name. She resides at 452 Lincoln Avenue. For Ken and Dave both, she asked, could you please explain how the deferment of property taxes for seniors and veterans affect the town? And again, Mr. Pacheco, if you would like to go first, please do.
Well, I'm not sure how that affects the town. I mean, people are eligible to get an abatement on their taxes if they qualify with certain requirements. I know as far as the veterans go, they have a benefit, and we have on the warrant to increase the percentage cost of living for the veterans. My bill that I had, the article that I had posted on as a warrant article, was for seniors to be able to work off some of their taxes, minimum wage for the town, library, prime time maybe, to reduce their taxes if they qualified. There is also, this would be in addition to any senior abatement that they may be eligible for. So I'm in favor of seniors be given a tax break because of the fixed income. I've heard from many seniors who are concerned about their taxes and the tax rate. And when you're on a fixed income and you're not able to work, it's very difficult. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa, if you could answer the same question.
Yeah, I understand that some seniors may want to do this, but the concept of somehow or another turning our seniors into some sort of slave labor force should be rejected out of hand. I think we can make adjustments in property taxes based on age of building, age of resident, and we can come up with a formula that would work just fine for us and probably be very little interruption to the flow of dollars that we need to operate the town. And we probably should also, I would work to reclassify some of those homes as affordable housing and use our definition of affordable housing instead of that one that's imposed by the state.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next question I have is from Zachary Karen, 2580 Maple Swamp Road in North Dighton. His question is directed towards Mr. Pacheco and Mr. Rosa. How do you intend on supporting all of the necessary town departments, boards, and committees on the present and potential future 40B projects? And again, Mr. Pacheco, if you would go first, please.
Sure. Zach Karen is the chairperson of the ZBA. I used to be the chairperson of the ZBA. We've had 7 40Bs come to town. 5 of them have been approved. 4 of them are active right now. There's a 5th one that's in litigation. I'm in favor of affordable housing. I do not like the 40B law. We had an opportunity back in, I believe it was 2012, to reject the 40B law. I voted in favor of getting rid of it. It did pass because the big cities and towns like to keep it. I've been involved in particular, the Pines on Pine Street. This was a development that was 66 houses. I was able to get it to be reduced to 33 houses. The thing I don't like about 40B is that they can come in and ask for all sorts of waivers. And if you disagree with those waivers and reject those waivers, they can take it up to the housing court and they can get all of the things that they had wanted, not just the things that you're rejecting, but all the things that they wanted. So the best thing to do is to work with the 40Bs,
Zach, time.
get the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Rosa.
Well, as citizens and as somebody holding an elected office, a selectman or other positions, we're often advised that if you don't like the law, work to change the law. I have worked diligently to do so, and I have brought it before a leading state representative who has helped me clean it up and make it presentable to the legislatures in Boston. 40B is out of control. The basic premise of 40B is that they elevate one person, the developer, above the rest of us. That is not equal under the law. We're all supposed to be treated the same, and all of us are supposed to be equal under the law. If you can take a contractor and elevate him to a position where he does not have to comply with the laws that you and I do, that's elevating him above the law. These things must be resisted and worked against with much greater vigor than has previously been done by our selectmen.
Okay, thank you,
We're many
Mr.
other
Rosa.
ways to getting that done. So
Zach.
here we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosa. The
Can I
next,
respond? Can I respond to that?
yes, quickly, go ahead.
Sure. The 40B law has been around since 1969. I'm glad that Mr. Rosa, who's running for selectman now, has proposed a change in it. But where was he when we were trying to get the 40B rejected by the people in the state? So I'm glad he's interested in doing it now, but this has been around for 50 years and he's starting to do something about it now. Good luck with changing it, Mr. Rosa.
Am I allowed to respond to that?
If you can do it fast.
Okay, well, thank you for wishing me luck. And I think right about now, the people of Dighton understand that I will use the system that we have, and I will use it hopefully very effectively. And I don't know why many others, I know there have been many attempts and they've all failed. For some reason, my drafted version seems to be something that state legislators can live with and work with. So we'll see, new broom sweeps clean.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're gonna move on. The next question is from Brett Zagrafos, 411 Tremont Street. And this question is directed towards Mr. Carvalho. Has your experience with your failed development shown you how important it is to have a planning board that works to hold developers accountable?
Great question, Brett. Thank you for putting that up there. And it's kind of funny because hearing the previous conversation, it kind of falls right into that, doesn't it? So yeah, I had a very unique experience with this particular situation because yeah, the developer always wants to try and do what they can to get the job done. And well, they're in business too, so it's completely understandable. But yeah, the town, I think it's very important. And in my experience, the councilman on the came on the planning board during the meeting. And he did hold the developer accountable to all the concerns that the residents had, as well as making sure that the developer was doing things in accordance of what the town rules were. So yeah, it's very important. And I see the planning board as sort of a protectorate of town development. I know the zoning board that has a role in that to play as well. And obviously the
Time, Zach.
selectmen does.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cavallo. Next question comes from Rafa Delphin from 400 Lincoln Avenue. What are your ideas for improvement on the Board of Selectmen? What do you think should be implemented to avoid the recall of a selectman? Mr. Pacheco, if you would go first on that again, please.
Well, as many of you may know, I supported the recall of one of our select persons. I think the best thing is, and the reason why I supported it was because of her behavior when it came to the evaluation for a town administrator, as well as her reading a letter that was not signed by anybody regarding one of the candidates that was running for election. I think since we've had the recall, we tend to get along very well, I think, the Board of Selectmen. And I don't think right now there's any reason to, for a recall. You recall somebody when their behavior is detrimental to the town, and the plan is to be a good select person and don't do anything that embarrasses the town and makes the town look bad. So, that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Rosa?
Well, I certainly agree that, we have to take some efforts and precautions not to misrepresent the town or the people or their intentions. And, but recalls are difficult to embrace. I understand sometimes people are frustrated with the actions of some, and they can call them up or voice their opinion, or I'm just feel that recall has to have a very, very good foundation. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosa. The next question is from Brett Zagrafos, again from Tremont Street. This general question is for Mr. Pacheco and for Mr. Rosa. When it comes to having influence in changing state laws, such as Mr. Rosa's 40B law proposal, would it be more effective to do so as a Massachusetts state rep and/or state senator, or as a Dighton selectman?
You want me to speak first?
Please.
Yeah, I think it's more important as a state rep or a state senator to change the law. You can have some input, as Mr. Rosa has implied that he would like to be able to do, but it's the state reps and it's the state senators that will be voting on it. Obviously, we can have contact with them. We do have, for example, the governor came down with a proposal for housing choice. We're short $135,000 in housing units in Massachusetts over the next 5 years. And he has a proposal to reduce the zoning bylaws in each town to allow more housing. This was brought by me before the Selectmen, and I advocated that we not approve the Housing Choice Act, and the board supported me on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosa, if you want to respond to that same question.
I think I did exactly what citizens are supposed to do. They seek out their elected officials, and they collaborate to come up with a solution. And hopefully that will modify a law, bring into existence a new law, or do away with a law that's no longer helpful to us. So I think I'm right on the path I'm supposed to be on. I have heard the discussion about this 40B from many different sides, and saw a variety of solutions that did not succeed. And I believe mine will perhaps have some greater level of success. So all I can tell you is that with regard to the question, I believe I'm moving in the right path. I believe I'm cooperating with the right people, and hopefully it's something that our town in many ways will, and not only our town, but small towns across Massachusetts will benefit from and be protected from some of the 40B planning that may be coming down the road.
Thank you very much. The next question I have is from Rafa Delphin, again from Lincoln Avenue. How do you define your budget priorities when tough decisions have to be made? And Ken, if you want to go first on this, please do.
Sure. Obviously, we have to be concerned about the operating expenses and the capital expenses for the town. We've had to go through the budget. We just went through the budget process, and we have an
Mr. Pacheco? Can you cut out on us?
what we did last night at the Selectmen's meeting. We reviewed their recommendations for the budget. So we look at each individual item in the budget, those that we think we can get rid of. And I've been active in that. If you've ever watched any of the Selectmen's meetings, when we're talking about the budgets, I've always been concerned about the expenses for the town and the town taxes. And I've watched the money closely. I think we've been doing a good job. Next year is going to be a very tough job because of the pandemic. I think my time is up. Is that my time? Yep,
Your
that's it.
time's up.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa, same question.
Well, I just noticed that at the end of Ken's talk, he said it's going to be tough because of the pandemic, and yet at the same time he faults me for voicing my concern or joining with fellow people about voicing the concern about opening up for people who can't rely on a government check or to keep their families fed and pay their mortgage and keep their life going. So, when he talks about the budget, it's not just him, but many elected officials really have a tremendous amount of tax dollars in reserve, and they hide them under accounts under different names. So I would argue that we're probably overtaxed, not only here in Dighton, but probably by the state. And there's probably a lot of money tucked away in accounts with different names. And so I think there's a reserve there that we could probably reach into if we really worked at it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have another question here from Chris Hoskins from Save Our Schools. This is from Mr. Pacheco and to Mr. Rosa. Going along with the previous conversation regarding developments in Dighton, where do you stand on the topic of developments leading to future capital projects within the regional school district, operating budget increases due to enrollment, and other increases we have been seeing in both Dighton and Rehoboth? And Mr. Pacheco, if you want to go first again, please do.
Sure. There's no doubt that we have more houses being built in Dighton. That means that we're going to have to add on to our schools. We just approved a year or two ago 6 modulars for the elementary school, which I was in favor of. I would prefer that we did brick and mortar. I was disappointed that we waited till the last minute to deal with that. But there's no doubt that we have more housing going on in Dighton. 40Bs, we're not. With a 40B, you can't take into consideration, one of the things I don't like about the 40B is that we can't take into consideration our schools, our fire department, our police department. So we're definitely going to have to expand the school. I believe in Dighton, our middle school is almost at capacity, and we're going to have to spend money for that. So I think the town needs to prepare, start putting more money in the stabilization fund so that we can have money when we need to add to the school. But there is no doubt that we are a growing town, and we're putting more houses and more children in our schools.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Rosa, if you would answer the same question, please.
Yeah, I just have to say, I enjoy these questions and whatnot, but I also enjoy questions that are directed at some of the other candidates. We need to hear from them as well. At any rate, it's amazing to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the student population in Dighton was growing for 5 or 6 years before we arrived at this point. And so we get here and it's suddenly like it's a big surprise. Well, I think that's a failure of leadership. I have no idea why Dr. Azar or the school committee or the selectmen were not ringing the alarm long ago and presenting information at town meetings and saying, look, this is not just a wave, it's going to be with us for some time. And this got us into the whole thing with the trailers added onto the schools and that whole debacle. So, we just, there has to be better communication, better planning. And once again, a new broom might sweep clean, and we can probably do proper planning and fix it.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Brett again, 411 Tremont Street. This is directed towards Mrs. Koecher, who's running for the school committee. Brett writes, you have been a strong educational advocate and a clear voice of reason on the school committee since you were first elected. Do you have any specific goals you'd like to see the school district accomplish in your next term?
Thank you. Yes, and I'm going to go right back to the question that was just posed to the candidates running for selectmen. We did do the modulars, as Mr. Pacheco stated. We do know that needing more space is certainly something we need to look at, especially in the town of Dighton. The modulars are serving our purposes at this moment. However, we did also decide that we wanted to establish a building committee, which we were in the process of doing prior to the pandemic becoming something that took over everything at this point. That's still in the process. There are people that have volunteered to be on this committee from both Dighton and Rehoboth. We also commissioned as a school committee a group called NESDEC to take a look at all our buildings, all our space, what was available, what the possible situations might be, how we could move things around, how we could better utilize space. And moving forward from that, the NESDEC group also met with both towns, demographic studies as well, looking to
Time's
the
up.
future. If I
Thank
might
you.
just add, that committee is in the process of being formed or has been formed, but we look to meet in the very near future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Koecher. We appreciate it. Do I have any other questions from any of the audience members on here? If you do, please put them in the chat at this point. And also, if you're watching on the Facebook live feed, I have the comments up on my phone right now. If you want to make a comment or have a question, please just make sure that you put your name and street address in the comment on Facebook also. Does anybody else have anything at this point? Okay. Oh, we do have one from Rafa. As the town gets bigger with more housing development, there's the inevitable risk of historic houses being demolished. If elected as selectmen, can you guarantee that no more of these historic houses will be demolished?
Rafa, as you know, I can't guarantee that no more houses will be demolished. As you know, I'm in favor of preserving as many old houses as we can. I'm part of the Dighton Historic Society, member of the Dighton Historic Commission. I have an old house. My house was built in 1775. You may see some of the handiwork in my house. I love old houses. I don't think it's the town's responsibility to pay to keep these old houses, but I do believe that we should do whatever we can to preserve the old houses in town as best we can. And we should not, as a town, participate in demolishing a house as we are for the James Briggs house next to Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa, if you want to respond to that also.
Well, yes, thank you very much. And, you know, I would be an advocate of taking it case at a time. The merits of the house, the cost and effort to preserve it, and of course, taking into account its history. In some cases, we seem to be doing a pretty good job. In a few places, there's going to be opportunity to do a few others, and I would work to evaluate those on a case-by-case basis, and the merit of the house, the project, and the cost would all be looked at. So, Rafa, thank you for the question. And yes, we'd like to preserve Dighton as best we can.
Thank you, Mr. Rosa. The next question, and we have another question from Brett. Can all the candidates tell us their top priority if elected? And I will start that question. I will start with the selectmen, and I will start with Ken.
I would say, I think we've answered this question before, but I would say that for me, it would be making all the town buildings ADA compliant, getting rid of the barriers that impact the residents of this town. I look at this issue.
I don't know what happens.
Ken, I think you cut out on us.
Yeah.
See our buildings become compliant so that no resident will be prevented from participating in our government and participating at our meetings and coming to the town hall and benefiting from the things that we have in town, the library and stuff like that. So that is my number one concern. I advocated for the ADA commission, which the townspeople agreed. I advocated for the ADA coordinator, a paid ADA coordinator, and we have a top-notch person there. And I advocated and worked on the grant for the ADA for self-evaluations for all of our town buildings that we're presently reviewing right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa, same question. What is your top priority if elected?
Well, I have to listen to the constituents. I want to work on this 40B thing. And as a member of the Parks and Recs Commission, we've already made a few changes to some of the playground equipment to accommodate ADA. And so I can't say I elevate one thing above the others. I believe they're all important and they all deserve every bit of attention we can put on them. And so getting this, defending ourselves from 40B is important, but we'll take care of the ADA thing as well. No problem.
Thank you. Jeff, if you want to answer the same question because it's directed at all of the candidates.
Okay, thank you. My top priority would, as a member, elected member of the planning board, would be to protect the natural beauty of the town of Dighton from any outside entities coming in to develop the town. So I want to make sure that, as part of a member of the board, planning board, I would serve to protect the town from anything changing the natural beauty that we have in this town.
Thank you. Eliza?
Thank you. I believe I'd like to see our district, both Dighton and Rehoboth, preserve the excellent programs that we presently have existing for our students. And I'd also like to see us invest in moving our district forward. I would like to see us move forward with the building committee for our future needs as well.
Thank you. I believe that is everybody. So I have another question here. It's from Rachel Dingus, 2408 Maynard Lane in North Dighton. And this question is directed at Mrs. Koecher. As a member of the school committee, how would you say the communication hurdles with Rehoboth have impacted delivering best-in-class educational opportunities for our students and community?
Thanks for the question, Rachel. Communication is key for both towns. Communication is key, and this will go back also to the building committee and the comments that were made by Mr. Pacheco and Mr. Rosa, actually, I believe, in talking about the fact that more communication would be helpful in that regard. I think communication is key in both towns. We need to do, as Mr. Pacheco suggested, continue meeting jointly with Rehoboth. We're all in this together. In order to move forward, we have to have rational discussions of topics that are important to the students, to families of both communities, and that's what has to happen moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a question from Facebook. Mark Marino of Pleasant Street asks to the Selectmen, how will you build business in the town and deter large developments? So Mr. Pacheco, if you want to go first on that.
Sure. Well, we're presently having a study on a possibility of sewer going down Route 138, which will bring more business into town. We have a warrant article that we're going to make zone business on 44 to expand it a little bit to get more businesses in town. It's difficult, as I've said before, to stop development. We all go around telling everybody how great Dighton is, but we can't tell them not to move into Dighton because we want to leave it the way it is. So we are going to have development. I agree with Mr. Rosa that the 40B law right now is not workable for a small town like that. If you don't have 10% affordable housing in your town, these developers can come in and basically tell you how they want to develop their project. And if you don't go in their favor, they can challenge it and they usually end up winning their cases. So it's very difficult to slow down development. We may have an issue with water in town, so that may slow down some development. We may not have enough water for new development, so.
Okay.
I want to say,
Thank you. Mr. Rosa?
I want to say, would you repeat the question? But I think I've got it. Is, yes, we want some business development. It helps with not only our tax base, but also it adds to the quality of life here in Dighton. So maybe the town will have to be a lot more lenient with some businesses in some ways to entice them to come on board. I know it's at odds with getting the more taxes, but I think there's a way to, how do they say, thread that needle. And I think we can get there. So we want to help small businesses come in. We want to protect ourselves from a really some sort of developments that are just too burdensome.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question on here is from Cheryl Dutra, 1650 Wellington Street. And this again is going to the Selectmen candidates. What is your plan for maintaining the rural character of Dighton with all of the development that is taking place? Mr. Pacheco?
Well, that's a tough question. One of the things would be to slow down the 40Bs, but as you know, we have a pending 40B that's on 138 that's going to bring up, I believe, 113 more housing units into town. And it's very difficult to reject that, as I've said before. If you make they can make a 40B development can make a 20% profit. And if you show that the conditions that you're imposing makes it uneconomical, they go to the mass housing court and they're going to win the case. I'm all in favor of continuing to have Dighton be a rural community. I supported making Dighton a right to farm community. I'm into preservation of old houses, and unfortunately, we have no control of those houses being sold to developers, and they build a lot of houses. It's a very difficult thing to do. I support keeping it rural. However,
Right, if you would
I
finish up
don't
your
see how
thought,
we can
please.
stop a lot of the developments coming into town.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
I'm
the
all
same-
set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same question. What is your plan for maintaining the rural character of Dighton with all of the development that is taking place?
Okay, there's no way that question can be answered in a minute. I can tell you that in my draft version of the modification of 40B, it includes suspending any 40B project currently in a planning stage until such time as the legislation itself can be completely resolved. So I mean, I've tried to cover all the bases. I've tried to protect not only Dighton, but I tried to draft something that protects a lot of the small towns, the ones around us and well beyond across the state of Massachusetts. We're bumping up against something where people buy a lot, if you will, and it has to meet certain requirements in size and whatnot. There's a whole discussion behind that, but now they're the property owner. And they can do with that property, if they want to build a house, they can do so. And, as an American, I sort of object to interfering with that. Although, we just have to strike some sort of a balance. And I'm not sure what it is, but I know we have to be very careful of property rights.
Okay, if you would wrap up your thought for me.
Yeah, I think I've covered it. It's just too difficult to answer in a minute.
Okay, thank you. Then this is from Chris Huns from Save Our Schools. It's to Mrs. Koecher. In your preparation to discuss possible budget reductions this coming Tuesday due to decreases in state aid, have you considered administrative reductions both district-wide and within the regional high school that have been mentioned before as too much?
Okay, thank you for the question, Chris. The discussions will take place next week. This is information that came to us at our most recent meeting regarding possible reductions from the state in our Chapter 70 funding. The central office, Dr. Azar, administrators, and Paul Kitchen, our business administrator, are looking at possibilities and scenarios that might need to take place. When we had budget reductions in the past, yes, we did go that route. I think it's important that we take a look at everything be on the table as we discuss what's in the best interests of our students and keeping our programs and keeping what it is we need to keep the level of education that we have.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Koecher. All right, does anybody have any further questions for any of the candidates listed below on the table tonight? All right, I will go around then and I will ask if any of the candidates have any closing thoughts that they would like to give to the public. Ken, if you would like to go, do you have any final remarks, any closing
Sure.
thoughts?
Yes, I just want to remind the public that the election is on June 6th from 7 to 5 p.m. If you wish to mail in a ballot, you still have time to do so. That ballot has to be received by the town by June 6th. You can get an application on the town's website, or you can pick them up at Town Hall in the foyer, and you can mail it in. And if you're concerned about the situation with voting, I'll be social distancing. I'll be wearing a mask. The town has plexiglass to protect the workers in town that are voting. You'll be given a disposable pen. After you fill a ballot, you're going to throw it away. They're going to clean each booth after each person votes. And you're going to be given a mask if you don't have a mask. You have to have a mask to go and vote. So if you feel comfortable voting, I'd appreciate it. If you don't, I get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rosa, final thoughts or remarks?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Dighton, I ask for your vote. I would like to bring my vision and maybe innovative ways to help us deal with a myriad of challenges and problems before us, and to help preserve and protect Dighton. And I want to thank Ken for his review of the voting procedure. I want to remind everyone that many of the ladies who work in the voting place might be in a group that is considered very much at risk. So let us take precautions, and maybe we don't, maybe we're not biased 100%, but those ladies in that room, they might be very much at risk. So please, let's take precautions for them. And it's just, thank you, everybody. I really learned a great deal from listening to the other candidates. Thank you very much for that. And Dighton voters, I thank you for your support. And I look forward to seeing you on June 6th. And thank you to the Friends of the Public Library, the Dighton Public Library. We'll find a way to get to a library we all like, enjoy, and can live with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosa. Jeff?
All right, thank you, Zach. Just real quick, thank you for having me. Thank you for putting this together. And like the two previous candidates mentioned, looking forward to June 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Koecher?
Thank you. First of all, again, thank you for this opportunity this evening to speak with the residents of the town of Dighton. If I may just go back to the previous question that was asked. We oftentimes look at budget cuts and sort of pit one group against another. I just want to make it clear that in bigger cities, oftentimes there might be top heavy in the sense of administrators, but in Dighton Rehoboth, that isn't the case for us. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that our central office is made up of our district superintendent, assistant superintendent, our business manager, our director of special ed. And then just moving forward, I would encourage residents to please attend our school committee meetings to stay on top of exactly what's happening in both our towns and as a district. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And with that, I will ask around one more time if there are any further questions from the audience. Otherwise, I would like to wrap this up. I would like to personally thank the candidates that attended tonight for attending. I feel as though this was a very good candidates night, considering it was put together pretty much at the last minute with everything going on. I appreciate your willingness to take an hour to an hour and a half to speak to the voters and speak to the people on Facebook also. I absolutely appreciate it. Thank you very much. Everybody, please get out and vote on Saturday, June 6th. I believe the polls are open from 8 to 6, I believe.
7 to 5.
7 to 5, I'm sorry, at the Dighton Elementary School in the gymnasium. And as Mr. Pacheco said, please practice social distancing. If you plan to vote in person, please wear a mask and do as instructed when you get to the polls by the poll workers, please. And without any more delay, I'm going to end this for the evening and thank everybody for coming. So thank you.
Thank you. Dighton.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.